So this is going to be a really interesting show already because we've been talking before we even went live, and it's just so fun and lively. So there's big serious news, but then our guests here actually have extensive experience just in general with government and skateboarding. So I'm excited. But there's a big question right now about this morning. We had the Lake and Riley trials going on. Opening statements are happening. There's a lot of questions about illegal immigration. Trende Aragua. They're saying now that this guy who is alleged to have killed Lake and Riley may have connections to Trende Aragua. They're saying it used to be MS-13, but the question now is, what's going on with all this trafficking? CBP they told Dr. Phil that they know children are coming across with numbers on their arms and they're being trafficked. So we're going to start there and dive into this stuff. And I hear we have some breaking news. So let's just get into it. Would you like to introduce yourself first?
So I am Mary O'Neill. I am the sister of General Flynn and Michael Flynn, and the sister of General Charles Flynn. He just retired. He's 4-star general out of the Pacific Command. And so I'm considered the master sergeant in the whole crowd. There's 9 of us. And so I run this great organization called America's Future for the chairman of the board, which is General Michael Flynn. We run a Project Defend and Protect Our Children, which has a huge team, an elite team of people that were persecuted for bringing stories forward and doing rescues and doing this a long time on child trafficking and child exploitation. So, I'm really happy to be here because it's important to get people to listen to what our next moves are and what's going on with my great friend Tara Rodas as well. She's a part of our team as well. We did 8 states. We went into very dark places. We took this team into places like Spokane, Detroit, Chicago, Fort Worth, Akron, Ohio. We were down in Florida, and also in a couple of other areas. But we took this team and we went into churches and we put a panel out. We discussed what their community is up against as far as child trafficking, exploitation. And we taught them, we train them all day. I've got an incredible team that trains on this stuff and gives them tools. It's very important for people to understand what to look for and how to identify criminals that are hurting children and the children as well, because they're all over the streets. The border has taken, it's a border state. Well, there's also those states that are border state. Everybody's a border state is a child trafficking state.
Yeah.
So it's everywhere.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We have another fun guest.
Yeah. Hi, Tim. I'm Tara Rodas, and it's really exciting to be here with you. And I do serve with Mary on the Project Defend and Protect Our Children, which is something that I think a lot of people just are not aware of, the child trafficking that's going on in our nation. And I wasn't aware until I volunteered to help the Biden-Harris administration with the crisis at the border. Your listeners may know that at the beginning of 2021, the Biden administration made an call to all federal employees. And they said, we have a crisis at the border. Interesting. They knew they had a crisis then. And they said, we need federal employees, vetted people, to come and help reunite children with families, sponsors here in the United States. And so my husband is from El Salvador. I'm a Spanish speaker. And I thought, I'm going to go on that mission. How cool. I'm going to go get to do puzzles, play games, talk to kids about their dreams for coming to the United States. Yeah. And then it only took like 2 weeks working in case management to realize that they were trafficking the kids.
Yeah.
So I began reporting trafficking in June of 2021.
You're saying the government was trafficking children?
The government. Yeah. Wow. I saw it with my own eyes. I was the deputy to the director of the federal case management team, saw it with my own eyes, reported. And then while we're reporting and we're trying to watch news, like what's happening, who's saying anything, and a DHS whistleblower, Aaron Stevenson, came forward and said, hey, because he was working the TOC mission, which is transnational organized crime, and he saw in 2021 the very first instance of a TOC member, which is transnational organized crime, MS-13, 18th Street Gang, and a couple other Balkan guys who were sponsoring the kids. And so he knew that we had a major, not only crisis for the children, but also national security threat. So he throws the flag in the air in August of 21. We've been reporting the cases, and then we see MS-13 is getting the kids.
Whoa.
You know, and my husband's from El Salvador, and I didn't think my heart could be more broken, because I'm looking into the faces of frightened children, hearing kids scream for their parents, watching kids have panic attacks. I knew that this was a serious, serious situation. So I began reporting on MS-13, which resulted in like 10 days. They figured out it was me. I was walked off the site under the threat of investigation.
Wow.
So my agency offered to send armed agents to escort me back from California.
Wow.
But yeah, it's crazy. They know it's going on, and it's been going on for a decade. And my mission is to stop government-sponsored, taxpayer-funded child trafficking.
Right on. Wow, that's crazy. Phil's hanging out as well.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. Tim.
Well, let's. What's this breaking news that you have? This is something big's going on?
Yes. So next week, typically we never advertise these things, but it is available now on the House Homeland Security Subcommittee. There is a hearing on Tuesday that I will be testifying on the crisis of the migrant children. So you, Tim, are the first to know.
Wow.
And your audience is going to be the first to know. So I encourage people, it's going to be 2 p.m. on Tuesday, and I encourage them to go watch the hearing and watch some people bring some heat down on this administration for trafficking children.
Yeah.
So, do you think at the highest levels they know they're trafficking children into? I mean, let's talk about the trafficking. This is labor trafficking, sex trafficking. What are we talking about?
Yeah, both and worse.
Well,
Worse.
Yeah. So you got to understand. Your audience needs to understand. This is a $150 billion business. It's more than guns, more than drugs. Okay. $150 billion business. That's child trafficking. That's one child 10 times raped. And you can take a drug for one time and it's out the door. But a child can be used in many, many ways. And you got to understand that they're doing it with that one child is used in many different ways to make money off of that child. It's a child is a commodity, and it's huge. It's funding what the globalists are doing. It's funding everything that they do. And, you know, I can go on about, I worked in the Catholic Church. I became, there's a grand jury down in Florida. I actually became a witness and testified in a grand jury about these 3 NGOs, which is Catholic Charities, also the Jewish Foundation, and also the Lutheran Social Services that were called as they were getting billions of dollars through our government to go actually be on the border and actually traffic these children. That's a grand jury. That's, you know, these testimonies that Tara has done, Aaron, and some of these other whistleblowers, there's some, everybody can go look these up. That they're available to be watched by your audience, by people, you know?
So there was that massively viral moment. Dr. Phil, he went on The View, and he said, the head of the CBP union told me children will come across the border with numbers on their arms.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then CBP just calls the number, knowing that these children are being trafficked for sex or otherwise.
Yes.
And the CBP just says, sure, fine, whatever.
Yes.
And they know they're doing it.
Okay.
So I have to wonder,
Yeah.
who ordered them to do it?
Yeah.
Because I don't think some guy of his own volition is just sitting there being like, I've decided to let this happen. Someone told him it has to be done. The head of the union is saying it's happening. So do you think it goes all to the top that Biden himself, Harris, they're well aware that they're sending these kids to be trafficked?
Well, what we can say is that Biden was part of the Obama-Biden administration, and one of the biggest busts for labor trafficking occurred in Marion, Ohio, on an egg farm there. So they knew they had a trafficking problem all the way back then. They had Senate hearings, congressional hearings, all kinds of stuff. And what was very strange about the beginning of this administration is that on day one, they began rolling back all the border policies, which people know. But what they didn't realize is that it opened up the door for bad actors to cross our borders and then begin to use our programs as the delivery system for the children. So yes, does Mayorkas know? Absolutely. Does Secretary Becerra of HHS know? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And they know because every time they're called to testify before Congress, they will use interesting smoke and mirror words. Right? 320,000 children are missing from a multi-billion-dollar federal program. How is that possible? How is that possible? And so when he's asked about it, he's like, oh, no, there's no children missing. And you'll hear, you know, senators pressing him and people pressing him. And he says, well, there's no children missing in our custody.
Right.
in your custody. What we're talking about is when you release custody to a random person in the United States who's MS-13, 18th Street Gang, transnational, crime member. No, what we want to know is where are the children now, to which they can give no answers because they know. Like Hannah Dreier of the New York Times, you may have seen, she wrote an article. Her first one was called Alone and Exploited. And you may or may not know, I'm not a great fan of the New York Times, but she reported the truth. She crossed this country. She showed debt bondage papers of children. Whoa. She documented children were working overnight shifts in slaughterhouses all across the country. Children not being able to go to school. This is horrific. Yeah. And yes, of course they know. They absolutely know.
Yeah. We had one of our guests brought us these bracelets.
Yeah.
That says something like delivered, or it's like a black bracelet they would put on the kids.
Yeah. Different colors. Jason Jones talks. So that's another guy you ought to talk to. He's an amazing man working down on the border. He's been down there for a long time exposing. He's a retired law enforcement. He's an amazing man. He has joined us on our summits, and there's different colors that they use for different kinds of owing. But wait, let me go back to something you got to understand, too. In 2021, there was a report that came out from the government that said in the foster care system, there were over 600,000 children missing in our country alone. So that's Trump. At the end of Trump, 2020 election happens. He doesn't win. Biden comes in. Now, mind you, DNA and vetting is going on, okay? Biden comes in, administration comes in, wins that election, or whatever you want to say, if it was a win. I mean, that's just still to be said, to be said. But anyways, this happens with Biden administration. Now you see children coming to the border without any adults. So there were adults coming into before when Trump was in, bringing children to the border. Now you see just children coming to the border. Now you see 600,000 missing in foster care. Now you see a new supply of children. My point is they needed a new supply of children to bring into this country because we pay the most to buy and sell a child. This country does. So that's that's a new supply of children. What we have found in our team is that there are huge satanic cults going on in this country. We were in Colorado Springs. One of our team members is a victim. She's an overcomer. She is a girl that, had 2 babies that were sacrificed in front of her. She's got a book called Silent No More, Lindsay. She's an amazing young woman. She actually broke the satanic area where she was when we were in Colorado. So we got to understand, like my drive right now is going to be getting into these churches. I'm going to drive churches absolutely bizarre because I am done with this fake Christian, nonsense, leading their people in the wrong direction and lying to them and not being fake Christians. When I was working in the Catholic Church, this was exposed to me. That's why I testified against the Catholic Charities, because Catholic Charities is a nefarious organization, and it is a lie to the Catholics, and the hypocrisy's got to stop. We cannot fix this country unless we fix these churches and stop this hypocrisy that's going on. It's terrible. It's leading people to the wrong side, to the dark side.
I always thought it was kind of crazy because when, when they talked about child separation, family separation, the argument from the right, from the Trump supporters was, or from the administration, we don't know that these people are related. Just because there's a child crossing a border and there's a man there does not mean that man is related to this person. And so, obviously we want to find out if this is a trafficking victim or maybe it's a child. And the media played it up like Trump was intentionally separating kids to punish people.
That's right.
And then you have, I think that's.
Well, there was no DNA. I mean, they stopped. He was doing DNA and vetting, but now when Biden comes in, there's no DNA and vetting. Mm-hmm. They stopped it all.
The other big thing, too, is when you get arrested, your kids don't go to jail with you.
Yeah.
That's like the weirdest thing ever, that they're like, no, send the kids to the same jail. It's like, well, I mean, the kids shouldn't go to jail. The kids are going to go to a holding facility, and the people who committed the crime will, go to
I'm going to tell you a story that one of our members was down on the border. And this is a very important story. And this is early on when the Biden administration came in and things started changing radically down on the border. All hell broke loose down there. The doors were opened. every criminal, everything was let them in, okay? An investigator was down there, and he was standing around one of the areas in the border, and he fell into the ground. He sunk. His feet sunk. And when he looked down, he pulled his foot up, and what does he do? He discovers a little body. Ooh. He starts to kick the dirt around, bends down, and discovers it's a baby that had been gutted, literally.
Oh, my God.
So he looks down across the landscape, and he discovers bumps in the landscape. So this is a ground where the cartel and the criminals are taking babies from people, because this is what they do. And we know the stories of, women that come across these borders and their children are taken, and for money. I mean, they're threatened, their lives are threatened. It's a very disgusting, evil thing that's going on, and people need to understand this is the most evil time in our life. It's actually biblical right now, and we need to understand the depths of the evil. And children are the victim. They're the most way that believing, I'm a heavy believer. My faith is very strong. You have to have faith to get through the stuff that we see and go through in our lives. My family's been persecuted. We had to have faith, and you got to understand that this is a piercing of Christ's heart to get a child. The old saying, you put a millstone around your neck. I'd rather put a millstone around my neck and throw you in the ocean if you hurt a child. And that's really where we're at. We're at in a time period where it's got to end. They do everything they can do to use that baby. And by the way, abortion is another issue. I'm going to throw this out at you. Let me throw this at you. This is used in child trafficking. It's not just, feminists want, their bodies, women want their bodies, and I got free rights and all that. This is even worse. They got little girls down there, they're breeding. So they're breeding babies, and they're bringing them over, and they're sending them into abortion clinics. So, James O'Keefe broke stories about Planned Parenthood a long time ago. Nobody listened to him. Nobody listened to what they were doing with those baby parts.
Well, the left doesn't want to listen.
No, but people need to understand that there's a lot of people that have exposed things in the past that we need to understand is not conspiracy anymore. There is no more conspiracy. It's been happening.
Yeah. And I heard, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't remember exactly when it was. It was probably about a year ago, listening to Tom Homan. I was at an event he was at. And I think just most people don't realize the depth of depravity of people. And Tom got teary-eyed talking about an 18-month-old. And this 18-month-old, who was no longer alive, had been raped in every orifice. This is an 18-month-old.
Jeez.
And people don't realize the depth of what's happening. They don't know what's happening to the kids. Kids were telling us about the sexual assaults that they had been through coming to our border. And then once they're here in our care, there are NGOs. DOJ just indicted some folks at Southwest Key, which is one of the largest Latino-led NGOs, for raping children in their care as young as 5. Yeah. I think people just don't understand what's really happening. I think the average person doesn't have a category for who is going to rape a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old. Right. This is stuff that I wish I never knew. I wish I could bleach my brain. Yeah. But once I was hearing stories from the kids, you can't deny it.
Yeah.
I want to just show this real quick too. This is from Fox News. Dr. Phil tells View hosts about horrific fates for some migrant children at southern border. Quote, "We are using American tax dollars to ship children into known prostitution and sweatshops," Dr. Phil said. Because I know there's going to be a lot of people who are exposed to this for the first time, and they're going to say, this is crazy. This stuff's not happening. Well, take it from Dr. Phil on The View when he said American tax dollars are shipping children into prostitution. Children.
Yeah, so how does that happen? I think people just don't understand how that happens. Well, right now in this program that's called the Unaccompanied Children Program, this is part of HHS. Now,
are you talking about the refugee resettlement program?
Yes.
Yes. I actually mention that very frequently on the show, because that's the means with which the Democrats are trying to transport illegal immigrants into different states, specifically purple states, in order to turn them blue, trying to get a Democrat majority so they can have essentially what would turn into a one-party rule. It is, and so please go on. But the
right.
program is called the Refugee Resettlement Program. It's run by the HHS. So please, by all means.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Bobby Kennedy has something to say about all this. I can assure you.
That's cool. It's really exciting.
Yes,
I'm
his
hopeful.
team is all over this. They are not into child trafficking, I can assure you. So things are going to change. But in the Office of Refugee Resettlement, they have a program called the Unaccompanied Children Program. And these are these minors who are coming alone. And so again, Tim, to your point, people are like, oh, other people have separated kids from their parents. Well, this program is a family separation program. The children are being lured here, and their families are letting them come here. So they're separating them from their families in home country, turning children over to smugglers, and then giving them to the United States government. So yes, when they show up at the border, they will have a phone number on their arm. They could have it pinned in their clothes. They could have a piece of paper you may have seen.
They hang them around their necks.
Yeah, hang them around their necks. That give them a number that they're supposed to call of the sponsor. This is their U.S. point of contact. So our fine Border Patrol agents, they take down this information, and then they hand them over to HHS, Office of Refugee Resettlement, Unaccompanied Children Program. And that was me. So I was sitting on with some really other great people at the Pomona Fairplex, and we take that phone number, that U.S. point of contact that the child gave to Border Patrol, that they got from smuggler en route, and we pick up the phone and use that as the sponsor and say, hey, Tim, you expecting anybody? And the goal was we were to move those kids in 10 to 14 days off our facility into the hands of the sponsor, which we now know are criminals and traffickers and members of transnational criminal organizations.
Yeah.
And tax dollars pay for it.
That's right.
They not only pay for the transportation from the border to us, they then pay for the transportation from our facility to the airport closest to where you would be living. And we'd say, hey, Tim, yeah, okay, you're getting these two kids. Well, meet us at baggage claim in the Houston airport, and we're going to deliver the kids to you.
I mean, this is February of 2024. This is February of this year. Dr. Phil was on The View saying this. This is mainstream reporting.
Yes.
The United States government is facilitating child sex trafficking.
Yes.
You mentioned Bobby Kennedy, and it's so incredibly good that it's so incredibly important that the Senate confirm him.
Yes.
Because we need someone that's going to actually make significant change. And not to harp on the news of last week, but it's incredibly good that Donald Trump has won. Yeah. Because if Kamala Harris had won, this would it would all be business as usual. Oh. She was the border czar for 4 years, allowing these programs to go on, putting no effort into changing anything, putting no effort into stopping this.
Yeah.
To think that this is something that, again, just like Tim says, Dr. Phil had spoken about it on The View, as mainstream as you can get. And Dr. Phil has up until, I mean, I'm not sure now how he's looked at, but I know up until at least recently, he was looked at by people like Oprah and by The View, the people on The View, as someone you can trust, as someone that is acceptable to listen to. If Dr. Phil says it, it's okay to believe. Dr. Phil wasn't someone that was to be tossed aside and disregarded just as oh, he's a MAGA guy, so we can ignore him.
Right.
And he's making these statements. He's bringing this to light.
Well, they all did that with Donald Trump. I mean, they loved Donald Trump
100%.
Before. They were all in his pocket. I mean, they were buddies.
100%.
I mean, all of them, Oprah, they all loved Trump before he went down the escalator and said he was going to run for president.
Well,
I mean, these people.
It's crazier than that. They still loved him then.
I know.
He went on The View. He went on, I think, like Jimmy Fallon's show, until they realized he was a serious contender.
Right. Yes.
And he was talking about shutting down a lot of what they were doing. Then all of a sudden he was Hitler.
Oh yeah, they went at him, right?
Yeah, and so I'm incredibly thankful that Trump won, that he's putting people in place or he's trying to put people in place that make the establishment upset because they don't have allegiance to the establishment. You don't have to work, like the fact that the establishment hates the idea of Tulsi Gabbard being the DNI,
She's
that's good.
awesome. She
That's
is
good.
awesome.
That's something I want.
Yeah,
I want the people that are going to be heads of these bureaus. I want them to make the people that are in the bureau say, I need to find a new job because I can't stay here. And that's something that you see on X right now a lot. People are like, if Matt Gaetz is the AG, we're going to quit working for the DOJ. If Tulsi Gabbard is the DNI, we're going to quit working for whatever organization.
Tulsi and Robert are great examples of, they were Democrats. I mean,
Right.
they opened their eyes. They actually, Robert's an interesting guy. I got to say that, his father and his uncle, there was an idea of an assassination and attack on those two men who were exposing secret societies.
Yeah.
And, what he did as a young man was he did a deep dive into the CIA and learned everything he could about him. He was so upset about his father and his uncle dying like that. He wanted to find out. I mean, he is a very, very extremely important person that researched and did what he did to find out what the truth was. The CIA has been being used for very nefarious things in this country, going back to Bush 1, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand that, or completely.
But it's very important that these guys came in and they realized that they've got to jump sides. They got to get on the good side. Let's get on the good side now. The people, the American people. Let's save this country.
I want those people to go to jail. The people that are the bad guys.
I'm not talking about. I'm talking about the American people.
Oh, yes.
They discovered that they've got to start fighting for the American people. Michael Flynn started local action when he got a pardon of innocence, and that's the drive. The American people did something remarkable. What they did to win this, they're the reason, and they should be damn proud of themselves because they listened, they stood up, they did their part, they did their duly citizenship. They took that vote and they saved this country. The American people did that.
Look, I have been very, very skeptical of the ability of the American people to see through what has been put in front of them, because the narrative that comes from the State Department comes from from the establishment,
The mainstream media.
media. It's all fed to them. And the first thing that the government does when they want to defend themselves against accusations from American citizens is to start discrediting them, start calling them names, start saying they're Russian assets like they do to Tulsi Gabbard. Say that they're somehow they've broken the law, or they're some kind of degenerate like they're doing to Matt Gaetz. All of these tactics are how they protect themselves, discredit the person that's making the accusation,
Throw a lie out.
And
throw a softball out.
And then because of the media that is totally in the pocket of the intelligence community and the State Department, because access is what the media wants. They want, and people think that it's money. People like to talk about, oh, well, they're getting paid, and the money is secondary. It's access to power, because that's the point of money. Money is, you want money so that way you can make things happen in the real world. Well, if you can make a phone call and call someone in a position of power or position of authority and say, can you do this favor for me? Money becomes secondary because you have access to the power just by making a phone call. And that's not traceable like money is. If you give someone gifts, if you're putting gold bars in your pocket like what's his name from Jersey, Menendez from Jersey, that can be found. But if you can just say, hey, can you do me a favor? I've got this problem. Can you make this problem go away?
They don't even ask for a favor. They just make a phone call and say, you know what's been bothering me today? This guy. Oh, won't someone rid me of this priest? Have a nice day. And then someone does, and he says, I never said anything.
But if you can do that kind of thing, then the money doesn't matter. So the people in the media, your Mika Brzezinski's, your Joe Scarborough's, your people that are going on Morning Joe, like people like from the Council on Foreign Relations and people at those organizations.
How many MSNBC personalities were former intelligence?
Oh, yeah.
All the time. That's part of the reason why I used to watch Morning Joe, because I was
who owns these networks. You just look at their backgrounds. I mean, Susan Rice was ABC, I think. Susan Rice was my brother, the national security advisor, who shook his hand. and was like, and then stabbed him in the back. So, these people own ABC. I mean, this is their agenda. You got to use, that's a part of the communist plan, though, is media. You've got to have media. There's certain things that the communists do to take over a country. I mean, my brother can talk, both of them can talk about taking a country over. They've done it. This country should never been in the wars that they were in. And they say that, they took countries over, and it is power, money, but you got to understand there's a lot of extortion and blackmail that happens at the highest levels of, international stuff. And politicians, they have sold the American people out because they started to, look at insider trading. They should never be able to be making money off that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think this is actually, I think we're getting a glimpse of this with the Matt Gaetz story.
Yeah.
So we hear about Diddy, we hear about Epstein.
Yeah.
The theories, and I believe they're probably, theory, but probably likely true. Epstein is having these wealthy people come in, getting dirt on them, and then saying, now we own you. You will do what we say from now on. And these people go, okay. But you don't even need to do that. They go to these people and say, you're going to do what we say. The first thing they do is they'll go to a politician, member of Congress, and say, look, you're going to get reelected. Just work with us. Here are the things we need to get done. Trust us. It's all for the betterment of this country. And if someone says, I don't believe you, they'll say, okay, well, look, we're gonna give you money for re-election. You want to be on our side because we're gonna help you. And he goes, no, I don't believe you, and I'll do it myself. Yeah. And they say, okay, now you're pissing us off. We will wage war against you. Don't do this. If they then say, no, I'm gonna do what the American people want, what my constituents want. They say, we're gonna falsely accuse you of A, B, and C. Yeah. We're gonna put that in the press. Not only will you never get reelected again, it'll destroy your life. Right. You want to keep playing this game? You look at the story with Matt Gaetz right now.
I know.
He gets nominated for AG, and anybody who knows anything about what's going on is cheering. And the people who don't pay attention are like, but what about this story of a 17-year-old? Right. Okay, I'll tell you about the story. He's accused by some guy and some woman. The DOJ investigates and says there's no credible evidence that anything happened. Right. In fact, there was evidence it was part of some blackmail extortion scheme to get $25 million out of his family. Now, that's right. Despite there being no evidence, and it's basically like this is just a wild case, the DOJ that's going after Donald Trump for the documents case, not anymore, by the way, who wouldn't go after Joe Biden for the same thing. So we know, give them a morsel of evidence and they will try to destroy you.
Oh, yeah.
Backed off of Matt Gaetz. Yeah. And now what's happening?
Yeah, very sad.
Even though there's never any real accusations, right. Yes. No real evidence of any wrongdoing, the media is running the story as if Matt Gaetz did something wrong. Why? Right. They will smear you and lie about you to try to destroy you if you oppose them.
That's right. That's right, Tim. The Flynns know it very well.
Oh, yeah.
What they did to a 3-star general was disgusting. It was despicable.
Crazy.
Yeah. They ruined ruined his reputation as a and there's many haters on him too. Our family went through holy hell what they did to my brother, and we still do. Every single one of us, 9 of us, were horrified when they did that to him. They threw a Russian spy at him. He slept with. They threw everything they could possibly throw at this guy, and it was an opening to actually a look into. I believe that that case, National Security Advisor, was the opening door of opening people's eyes to the depth of what they do by his case. There's good that comes out of bad things too. You got to understand, there's a lot of good that comes out of bad things when you're honest and you're truthful. If you're a criminal, then you're going to get caught. Truth always comes to the surface, but that's that extorting. Now, Hollywood is another thing. Now that stuff is going to, that Diddy stuff, that music industry, that's been dirty for so long that, I can talk about that. My son was signed to 2 record labels out there. 2 Easy Records was Baron Davis. His manager was D-Mac, was P. Diddy's best friend. And that was my son's. Khloe Kardashian was they were filming a pilot of all the skateboarders in California, and that was going to be a pilot. And Khloe Kardashian was the mom on the show, like the house girl that would clean the kitchen and be in the show. And I discovered that these guys were, Eddie's deal was he would never go to Diddy's party. He used to tell all his skate buddies, be careful going there. He just had this inner kind of feeling that it was not a good thing to be going to. And these kids got screwed up by going over there. A lot of them had bad experiences. So, this whole music industry goes way back into the dirty nonsense that they were using kids in. And the rap world was
Well, I mean, you also have the Corys.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, Corey Haim and Corey
And he's
Feldman.
been telling a long time, for those kids. I mean, they committed suicide. There's look at Justin Bieber. I mean, look at what they did to some of these Canadian musicians and stuff. I mean, Diddy's stuff is going to come out. That's going to be more. There's more to come. And now, God willing, that this has happened in our country. This is a new dawning for this country. We came extremely close to communists taking over this country. That's what people need to understand.
Yeah. We're still close.
So I got to put this into perspective. In 2016, my brother's mission really was not to have Hillary Clinton win, because if she had won, she's a communist. Then we would have been escalated into communism. So now we have this other woman who they put in. If that had happened, she's a pawn. She's a dummy. She's whatever she is. She doesn't know anything about what she's even doing. She's not even qualified to be the vice president. She's not even qualified to be a senator. She would have done exactly what they wanted to do. Our country would have been a mess if this didn't. Now, that's a new dawning, and people should be very proud of themselves.
We're not out of the woods yet.
No, we're not.
No,
we got a lot of work to do.
Trump's not president yet.
Nope,
Right.
that's
We
right.
still have 2 months, and I will just say I am deeply worried. In these next 2 months, I say Trump and J.D. Vance
Keep your guard up.
They need to be taking separate vehicles.
That's
They should never be in the same location at the same time. And I seriously hope that Trump is taking it seriously. I assume he is. Nominating Matt Gaetz, we bought champagne when he did.
I know. It's wonderful. I'm so happy.
But what I said was there are certain appointments Trump can make, which is a shot across the bow at the deep state.
Yep.
Basically a warning shot, like, hey, guys, we mean business. No. The nomination of Matt Gaetz was him saying war.
Well, yeah, and back to the rule of law. That's all.
Yeah.
It's not like we're going to be vengeance. It's not that way. It's about rule of law. Matt Gaetz knows, these people know who and what they're going to do. They know exactly what was going on. We fought this. We already proved that there were criminals going on, and there's criminal activity going on. It's just that nobody ever did anything to get these people behind bars.
Right.
You know?
Instead, they allowed the Justice Department and other things to become absolutely weaponized against average people.
That's right.
And that's terrible. I mean, I know women who went to their school board meetings, and next thing you know, they're on the Quiet Skies list. They're
right.
threat tagged as domestic
That's
terrorists.
insane.
Yeah.
I
Not
know
for much
you're.
longer.
I know you're right. I know you're telling the truth, but
Yeah.
that is
Tulsi
so
Gabbard
insane.
Also.
Yeah.
And why is that? Why do we have like FBI agents? I'll use Garrett O'Boyle as an example. He's the one during the weaponization hearing who said they will crush you.
That's right.
I mean, they try to make examples of people.
And there's one point that I want to make about this. When these programs are used to politically used by people for politics, to disenfranchise people, to basically persecute American citizens, it makes other American citizens less safe.
Yes.
Because you're taking resources away from doing actual work. These programs exist specifically to protect the lives of Americans.
Yeah.
When you put Tulsi Gabbard on that list, someone that is absolutely not a threat to Americans, she does not pose any threat to Americans. What she poses is a threat to the bureaucracy, to the entrenched. She poses a threat to the entrenched bureaucracy. So when you put
Very important word. Bureaucracy.
yeah, when you thank you very much. That's true.
It is, because the bureaucrats are doing their
Yes.
dirty work to
Yes.
the people in the local communities. They're terrorizing people.
Exactly. And when you put people
Minions.
like Tulsi Gabbard onto that list, you are taking time away from finding actual threats. Thank God
That's right.
thank God nothing has happened, but you are taking resources away from finding real threats. And they're doing it because they want to protect their own power.
Yes.
These programs
right.
probably need to end. As much as as people, they will say, "Oh, you're going to endanger people. You're going to endanger Americans." It is more likely that these programs are a greater danger and greater threat to American security and greater threat to Americans' liberty than having them than any terrorists are currently.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
They want to rip the Constitution and our Bill of Rights up. That's all they want to do. They
Unquestionably.
don't. We are a constitutional republic. There is no other nation in the country like our country. Look at what they've done to the middle class. Look how they have destroyed the middle class in this country. Look, prime example is COVID. During COVID, look at all the businesses that had to shut down. Okay, and especially the ones that wouldn't take PPP money from the government. You know, I mean, they just destroyed the middle class. No other country in the world has a middle class. That's what makes this country such a beautiful country. Look at the skate park. Look at all this opportunity that kids have. We need to get that back into the message of young people today. Is opportunity. This country gives you the whole picture.
I think that they intentionally want to destroy this country.
Yes.
And so taking away the dreams and ambition of young people, that's what we are seeing with the younger generations.
Yep.
These kids are being raised to feel entitled and to do nothing. And so now you have many millennials who don't want to work. I'll give you an example of their ideology. There's a viral tweet where someone said, "What are you going to do once communism wins?" And one response was, "I'll teach poetry lessons on my farm."
Oh no, that's not going to happen.
Someone responded, "Your farm?"
Yeah.
But they don't understand. They think
poetry is out the door.
Oh,
Tim.
easily.
You're not going to read books.
And you won't
Art
have a farm.
is gone. Art, music, gone.
Let me say. I always ask people this: how many people do you know play guitar? Mm-hmm. Do you know many?
Oh yeah,
lots.
Oh, yeah. Lots.
How many of them?
I do.
wish they were professional musicians and made a living playing guitar?
That's right.
A lot of them, right?
A lot of them. Everybody has those aspirations, right?
How many of them have the skills to actually make it?
Not a lot.
Right. Now, these people on the left think, if we had communism, I could be playing guitar all day. Yeah, right. They're going to take your guitar and you're going to break rocks.
Oh, absolutely.
If you
absolutely.
take a look at how North Korea handles these things.
Yep.
There are kids that are told when they're young, you will be a skateboarder.
That's right.
And then they take this kid, give him a skateboard, and say, start skateboarding. The kid doesn't have a choice.
That's right.
And some people are like, wow, I wish my life was just skateboarding. That kid doesn't know anything.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's a good example of the Olympics. If you look, back at the history of the Olympics and you see Chinese kids and the pressure that they're under and they're told to do those things. And there's so many stories about that kind of thing. And that's why the Olympics is so dirty, because they should have never allowed that kind of activity going on in communism is a very, very evil thing.
I think Hillary Clinton and the neoliberal uniparty establishment, the story goes that at some point, we were supposed to open the trade up with China so that China would be more like us.
Right.
That didn't happen. I think what happens is you get these Democrats and Republicans who are like, man, look at this. Yeah. China can build a highway overnight by flattening a bunch of residential houses and no one can stop them.
Right.
We got to deal with lawsuits in courts. Mm-hmm. How do we do that?
Yeah.
And so they invite in the Chinese Communist Party to say, teach us how we can destroy. Look, it's better for the country and the efficiency and the numbers if we can build this highway in a day, but there's houses in the way. And the Chinese Communist Party is like, let me explain. Yeah. This is what they want to build.
Yeah. Well, so this organization, America's Future, is 80 years old. I'm going to give you a little history. In 1946, these were men and women that were entrepreneurs, military, writers, many writers. They did incredible book writing and so forth and educating the public. They were warning the American people, though, that there were over 1,000 organized communist groups in the country. This is before the Cold War, that this was a threat and that communism. So I'm talking like in the 30s, like this communism infiltration in our country was real. And that's what these people were trying to do. And we've manifested to 80 years now. Look what we have done. And now we're here. And by the way, communism has been allowed to buy up farms and have land next to military bases in America. Like we've got people that are people that are in our government that are real communists. We have communism. People that say they're Americans, that take oaths too, that are leaders that take oaths that are actual communists. So we've got to kind of to be honest with you, I think that Trump ought to go in there, shut the government down for, as long as he needs, just absolutely fire everybody in the federal government, just clean house, let this team clean house, and just let's step out of the old systems and step into the new constitutional rights that we have in our.
Do you think it's going to be all recess appointments?
I think that. No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that we're going to. Here's another thing. I ran a campaign myself. So down in Florida, I got the gist of the establishment Republicans versus they're working with the Democrats bound.
Oh, yeah.
That's what happened down there in my campaign because they saw a Flynn come and I ran I just wanted the experience. I wanted to see what it would be like and the Flynn name. And so what happened to me was like 7,000 Democrats signed up to be Republicans in a primary, and then they go back to being Democrats, voted against me. Yeah. And then they had a pack of like $300,000 to vote me out so I wouldn't get in. I was only running on a hospital board. I wasn't even running like a big race. So this cleaning of the Republican Party, they need the Republicans that are real American first people that are doing this. And that's another thing I got to go back to, local action. General Flynn encouraged a lot of people to jump into races around their communities. Jump in and do your community work. Start doing it. We need to clean that Republican Party out. This has got to stop with these establishment rhino people. We already know the Democratic Party is either socialist, communist, or Marxist. We got it. They're wide open. Wide open. They talk about it. But the Republicans say they're Christians, say they're conservative, and they're working with Democrats. I'm done with this nonsense in the Republican Party. To me, I'm just a woman who loves children. I'm pro-life. I want to help a young girl if she's pregnant. I want to help life. I want life. I mean, we're in a time period in this history of the country that it's the lowest birth rate in the history of this world right now. Elon Musk talks about this. He actually set that alarm about 6 months ago, and good enough for that guy to say that, because people need to understand we're not even having enough babies. We're killing children,
So people need to understand, too, about the birth rate stuff. The technology we have is predicated upon a population size.
Right.
So if you take the smartest person in the world right now, let's Phil, you're a capable guy. If you were in the middle of the woods and all humans were gone, what could you build? Could you build a computer?
No.
Nope. But okay, well, hold on. Let's something.
Build a fire.
But you're a smart guy. You understand. Okay, you understand some basic mechanics. You've seen. You know how a car works, right? Mm-hmm. Internal combustion engine. You have a general idea. Would you ever in your life by yourself build an internal combustion engine?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I could not even make a pencil myself.
Here's the crazy thing, though. Your average person understanding the basic mechanics of a calculator, it's actually really simple, or like a rudimentary mechanical calculator, or an internal combustion engine. You've got cylinders, light combustion pushes it, and then it spins, right? Or a steam engine. The issue is, first you got to get someone who's going to be able to get the iron, or get the components for the iron to be smelted to get the iron. Yeah. And so even if you know how to do it, you need, I don't know what, 20 people, each with one job, so that we can get it done in a reasonable amount of time. Otherwise, it'll take you 3 or 4 years to collect enough iron. Yeah. Then you've got to melt the iron down. Then you've got to figure out, even if you understand the basic components. So when Elon Musk is saying we need more people, what he's saying is to build a starship, you probably need 1 million people, each specialized to do one thing that adds to the greater organization of that device. What this means, if population collapses, people are going to be like, remember when we had TVs?
Yeah.
They're going to say, well, we don't know. Look.
Yeah.
There was a guy who made he had a great TED Talk where he tried to build a toaster from scratch.
Yep.
He says, well, first of all, plastic was impossible.
Right.
He says, I could get the metal. I made the wire. Then, I made the mechanical components, but I couldn't get plastic. It's not possible. Right. So for the sake of finishing the project, he mined plastic. Yeah. He went to a junkyard, took a bunch of plastic waste, milled it down into its components, and then smelted it. But that's not reality.
Right.
Wow.
An individual can't make plastic.
Right.
So we need all of these people to be specialized if we want technology to advance.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Otherwise, we go to the Dark Ages.
Well, I mean, you have a good point. I mean, Elon. The other thing about Elon is he loves his children. He's got a lot of children, and he knows how important it is to have to protect children, and that's really, I mean, so back in the Industrial Revolution, during the industrial, I studied this because I have an environmental science degree, and so I had this. Industrial Revolution, that's when they began this population control. That's when they began, and the massive food, because they got these alarmists started saying, oh my God, we have so many people, we got to be able to feed them. We're not going to be able to, and then they were slashing and burning our resources, and they were mistreating, resources in this country, and because it was so abundant. But, population control is like one of the biggest goals the globalists have is this population control and having a certain amount of people in like 2035, I think, so they have these goals they've set. And, we really just kicked the globalists in the ass with this election. That's what we just did. So,
well,
so
now Trump has to get in.
Yeah.
And, it's only just begun.
Yeah.
The first time around, he was surrounded by swamp monsters, and much to
oh god,
a lot of his mistakes.
He was very naive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He thought he was president.
Yeah.
He thought he had the authority, and he thought he'd negotiate. And they said, "Sure thing, Trump." And then they went after him with everything they had.
Yeah, no, it's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad.
It's money. So
Yeah,
much of it is money. People
Yeah.
want their contracts. They want their big offices. They want so many employees who are under them. It's follow the rules. And it's interesting because today I'm here in my personal capacity, not talking on behalf of the government or my agency. I've been with the federal government more than 20 years. And I never saw the corruption like I see it now because I witnessed it firsthand. And I witnessed the way that they will weaponize against you. They will do, they'll pull the Matt Gaetz stuff or the stuff with Michael Flynn, Crossfire Hurricane, Crossfire Razor. All they
under
have,
investigation.
Put you under investigation, which is what they did to me. And they do that, Garrett O'Boyle, as I mentioned. They will crush you, but it's not just to send you the signal that they're in control. It's also to scare everybody else to get in line and not to say anything when they see corruption.
Right.
And so when they walked me off the site, remember, for reporting that MS-13 is sponsoring kids. Aaron Stevenson, the whistleblower before me, DHS, he was like 2 years from retirement. This is a combat vet. He's, served. He's a Marine, 3 tours Afghanistan, 3 tours Iraq, and was fired for blowing the whistle on child sex trafficking. What's going on? But they do that so that nobody else will come forward.
That's right.
When they perp walk you, like they did me, midday, take your badge, it scares everybody around you. They want compliant people who will do what they say so that the money keeps going, the contracts keep going. I mean, this program alone is $7 billion annually. And so it's so much money flowing back and forth, and people are making a lot of money off these contracts, and that's what we need to get under control. People need to think about the nation. They need to think about
They do.
They just do. They need to think about what's right, and I think that's what terrifies them, as you mentioned about the president-elect and some of the interesting people that he is nominating for secretary positions. It's frightening to them.
Yeah.
They can't control
Fun for us.
That's another thing. The American people need to understand how much is their taxpayers' money.
Exactly.
This is all their money going to all this stuff. And it's been going on for decades. And, I mean, it's hard on them. I go back to the middle class, I mean, I'm middle class. We grew up with nothing. 9 kids and nothing. We were poor. My parents just said, I want you to get your education. So I just think that, we really need to get back to, I always talk about the high road, leaders. Like, so Trump, one of his things that I liked about him, was the fact that he was a businessman. Because I'm sick of lawyers running this country.
Yeah.
They don't know. And I worked for a CPA. My background's finance, compliance, and auditing. Okay, that's where I find the money. I can find the money. Let me tell you, I got the gift to finding. I'll find some money. I'll find a problem. So one of the things that he did was he runs a business. This country needs to be, run like go in, evaluate it, and gut it, and find the waste, and nobody's done that. These lawyers don't even know how to balance their own checkbooks. I mean, many times lawyers were going into their escrow accounts, writing their utility bills and getting caught. Like they don't know anything about money and how to, budgets. They know nothing about it. So it's been run by, I said this years ago, because my family was Democrat back in the day when it was, Kennedy kind of, pro-life and conservative Democrats, hardworking Americans, that kind of thing. I used to say, no, it's conservative and left now. These guys don't know how to balance budgets. They don't know anything about money. It's crazy. It's crazy.
And they can't tell the truth to save their lives.
And they're using people's money. I mean, we're all paying taxes. We have just gone through hell economy, you guys, right? I mean, I'm looking at people. How do families even, afford a gallon of milk?
Butter is $7.
I mean, it's incredible. Like, that's Venezuela, It's crazy. And that's why people are going back to growing their own food, and God bless them.
We got the chickens.
There you go.
Yes.
Love chickens. But I've been talking about this for a couple weeks now. Joe Scarborough on MSNBC made a comment about how someone told him butter was $3, and he was like, "Oh, okay, sure." He's like, "Trump's going to win because butter's over $3." And he's like, I'm thinking to myself, well, whatever. But I said, good point. And then Micah goes, "It's $7." He goes, "What?" She goes, "Butter is $7."
He's out of it.
And then he goes, "What is it, framed in gold?" Go to the grocery store right now by us. It's $7 for butter.
I know.
And I didn't know butter was that much. I did not realize it was $7. Now I know the price of cream because I put cream in I do the keto.
Yeah.
But I don't buy butter. I use olive oil. I know olive oil is real expensive.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is.
But Allison went to the grocery store. She was picking up butter, and then I saw it on the counter, and I was like, "Was it $7?" She was like, "It was $7."
Yeah.
Was it framed in gold? No, it's just regular butter.
It also did a very bad thing with this economy. Was there's many people that took advantage and they gouge, and they're gouging. They're price gouging because you go into a restaurant and you can see, like I just noticed, okay, all of a sudden alcohol was not expensive, but the meat was expensive. Now I'm seeing like the meat's going down.
I don't think that's gouging.
Well, there are people down. I see gouging.
We had a barbecue food truck.
Yeah.
And he stopped selling brisket.
Yeah.
And he said the problem was he would, in order to break even, he'd have to sell the brisket sandwich for $20.
Yeah.
No one's going to buy brisket for $20, so he just discontinued it.
Yeah, well, that's right. But there are gougers, believe me. There are people that are taking advantage of American people, believe me, because I see it down in Florida all the time, especially contractors and people that
that's
are,
something.
like
Contractors.
pricing on pieces, on wood and pieces. I see gouging going on all the time. It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, but that's what it does. It opened up doors for kind of corruption to come in. Like that's the kind of thing that happens when people don't get involved in their communities, and they need to understand that they need to keep track. Americans need to now keep an eye on everything that's going on. If they don't like it, stand up against it. That's what I think that they need to understand.
I
They've got a lot of power.
The issue I see with the gouging narrative is that it would require all of these industries to collude and and it would be price fixing.
Yeah. Well,
And if they're price fixing, then we got to send antitrust.
Yeah.
And that's just straight up criminal.
Yeah, well, we look at EPA. Look at the climate stuff. That's a way that they're going to make a lot of money on nonsense stuff that doesn't work.
What do you think? I don't see a reality where uniparty deep state elements just say, well, that's it. Trump won, and we're going to carry on.
Oh no.
What do you think this next year has in store?
Oh, I don't trust him. So
Fireworks. That's what I think. Fireworks.
They're just going to have to be on their toes. I mean,
did you guys hear this? They're talking about whether it's just tongue in cheek or otherwise. Democrats are talking about creating a parallel government.
Oh yeah, sure.
I should pull this one because people are going to be like, Tim, that's nonsense.
Me. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, they've got their people that are so. I mean, you got mental illness too. You got people that they call delusional.
Let me play this clip.
If Trump attempts to weaponize the justice system against his political opponents with Matt Gaetz at the helm, we could see incoming Senator Adam Schiff as our shadow attorney general, arguing against replacing our independent prosecutors with Trump loyalists. If Trump seeks to eliminate the Department of Education, Congresswoman Johanna Hayes, a former Teacher of the Year, could step up as shadow education secretary to loudly defend public education in the United States. If Trump orders Marco Rubio to hand Ukraine and much of Eastern Europe to Russian President Vladimir Putin, Congressman Greg Meeks, as Shadow Secretary of State, could be a strong voice in support of maintaining international relationships and protecting democracy at home and abroad. Senator Michael Bennet as Shadow Treasury Secretary and Congresswoman Susan DelBene as Shadow Commerce Secretary could help ensure.
Now, the response you're going to get from the left is saying, he's just talking about advocacy. No, shut up. You're an idiot. This is how it begins.
Yeah.
Yes.
In order to create a shadow system of governance or parallel governance, you need literally this.
Yeah.
This is the organization of structure of how you create parallel government. What do you think parallel government turns into?
It's already been there. We've already had a shadow government.
Now they're basically
right.
saying because the people of this country have voted for Donald Trump,
Right.
and I love this because it was Joe Walsh who said, to everybody who voted for Donald Trump, congratulations, this is what you get,
Yeah.
Attorney General Matt Gaetz. And I'm just like, correct.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what the American
We
people
could not hope
spoke.
for more.
They spoke. They're the majority. They won. So popular vote, everything. They won the House. I mean, you know what? Leave the country if you hate this country so much. Leave. Get out.
This is actually a point that I make regularly. The people that are nowadays, it's the Democrats, but the people that are so quick to say, "Oh, we need to have a shadow government, or we need to have some means to derail the will of the American people."
Yeah.
Those people hate the country.
That's right.
They hate the United States. They hate the form, the type of government that we have, the representative type of government that we have, that is ostensibly government by the people themselves.
That's right.
They hate the fact that there are limits placed on government. And at the very end of the day, they hate the American people.
That's right.
They hate the American people that were supposed to have sent them there, or that ostensibly have sent them there. They hate your average person. And I've said this is something that I've gone through multiple times in the past couple days.
That's right. And you see this in the campaign. I saw this. It's the Republicans, this establishment. They don't even like Trump.
Yeah.
They don't even like. They don't like America First people.
Yeah.
I saw this. They picked their own Republicans against, me, a Republican. They picked their own people. They don't like this country either.
This has been going on for probably longer than a decade and a half, but it really came out in the open with Barack Obama with they cling to their guns and their God. Then Hillary Clinton with the deplorables. Then Joe Biden said that MAGA Republicans are a threat to the very soul of our nation. Then he called the average Republicans garbage.
Yeah, the race,
Trump
the
supporters.
race card too. They're pulling the race card
exactly.
too.
Those are just the leaders that I've referenced. All of your Congress people on the left, all of your and people on the right sometimes are Republicans. All of the people in the Senate, they have been articulating that America is a bad place, that it's found in racism, that we're all bigots, we're all racist, we're all some type of deplorable person, somehow morally deficient, and they do that because they hate America.
Yeah. They project their own behavior too. Don't forget, their behavior is projected that way.
But I really do want to hit on that clip that you just showed. Let me ask you this. If the election had gone the other way, Tim, and you said that, I would expect that there's going to be a few people getting together, talking, they're going to be putting a tactical team together about how they're going to do a full breach on your place,
of course.
and you're going to sit in prison. So
Trump should too.
It's just
This is sedition.
Yeah, it's
exactly
just
right.
very interesting that they can get away with that, and they are so blind that they would actually have the gall to do that. It's crazy.
Another story that came up in the past couple of days is the Illinois and Colorado governors announcing a national coalition of Democrat governors, nonpartisan, they said, to reject Donald Trump's administration.
Right.
So I like to do what I call the time travel test.
Yeah.
Let's go back to 2018 and entertain the next 6 years. And I can already tell you, I know what the answer is. If in 2018, I said to you, they're going to impeach Donald Trump twice. On January 6th, 1,000 Trump supporters will be at the Capitol with a couple hundred smashing their way in and fighting with police. The media establishment, Democrats, will refer to this as the insurrection and the attempt by Donald Trump to overthrow the government. Donald Trump would then be impeached over this, where over the next several years, he would be accused of 34 felonies at the state level, a total of 91 criminal charges, found liable for criminal sexual assault. They will target him for prison in Georgia and accuse him in one federal case of trying to overthrow the election. Then he would win re-election, and we would see Democrats call for the formation of a shadow government to oppose his administration, and several governors would announce they will be forming a coalition to resist his policies. I tell you for a fact, people would say, Tim, you're a psychopath. Because in 2018, when I said, wow, the Atlantic says there's a 60% chance of civil war, they said, Tim, you're insane.
The DOJ should be knocking on that guy's door
I said,
as soon as Donald Trump
That's
gets
right.
into office.
That's right.
Back then, when we were looking at street-level violence, I was told by every single conservative and every beltway conservative personality and liberal, that's never going to happen, Tim. You're not going to have it. I want to stress right now, please just listen to how I've outlined the past 6 years. Trump was accused by the Democrats of trying to overthrow an election with an insurrection. Jamie Raskin in February of this year said, we will not certify him if he wins. And it'll be our job to tell his supporters who are marching through the streets he will not be president because he's ineligible under the 14th Amendment. Jamie Raskin said that.
I know he did.
Can we just mention right now, look,
He's going
governors,
to be on her testimony this week.
Someone calling for a shadow government, a shadow cabinet to oppose Trump. And again, they're going to say, oh, it's just advocacy. No. If I were to have told you a year ago that Democrat governors would announce a coalition to oppose the federal government, they'd say that's never going to happen. When I was talking, I've been talking about civil war for a long time. And it's not an idea I came up with. It's in the corporate press, the mainstream media. A Princeton professor brought it up. A former CIA analyst wrote a book about it. And I said, oh, wow, all of this is interesting. Everyone kept saying the states aren't going to line up against each other. It's never going to happen. And in 2020, we had Texas v. Pennsylvania, where the states lined up against each other over the election. Now we have, at the bare minimum, the formation of a national coalition of nonpartisan governors to reject the popular mandate. This is states lining up against each other. For all I know, and I say this every time, it all fizzles away. Trump gets in, he cleans things up, and everything's fine. But as of right now, much to my actual surprise, I did not even expect this.
No.
The idea that someone would go in Congress and say shadow government, and governors would say it's time to line up against Trump and form a coalition, I wouldn't have seen that coming.
The DOJ should go to is whoever, I don't know, we haven't picked or he hasn't announced who he's going to put in charge of the FBI, but the FBI should send agents to that congressperson's house, and he should be arrested. They would arrest a conservative if they did it. They did go to the president's. They went to Mar-a-Lago over classified documents that Joe Biden also had, that Hillary Clinton had. Donald Trump needs to be the president that they were afraid he was going to be. And all he needs to do is enforce the existing law.
They want to incite violence. You got to understand, they've been trying to do. Look at the burning out, when we were out in Spokane, out in Portland years ago, and I mean they want to incite the violence. They're trying to incite the violence.
I want to make this point. I'm not saying that he should do anything unlawful.
Oh no!
Everything that I'm saying he should do is completely legal. But Donald Trump was too timid when he was in office the first time because he was afraid of what the people would say. He was afraid of coming down too hard on the rioters and et cetera. He needs to disabuse himself of that notion. He needs to enforce the law, the existing law on the books. He needs to use the DOJ to enforce the law, and he needs to pick up that congressperson for sedition. Because that's what he's advocating for. Advocating for he did it. He might be protected because he was on the floor of Congress for saying that. He might be right. I'm not 100% positive, but anyone that is making those kind of moves, trying to incite, trying to create those kind of conditions, that is sedition.
Well, we can't be such nice guys anymore.
No, not at all.
That's
not
at all. And and I got to talk. Christians were built for battle. This country was built on a Judeo-Christian values. It is a biblical documents, and that's what these founding fathers did. And you got to understand, we were built for battle. I mean, I know the Irish were. Believe me, I come from an Irish Catholic family, and I'm telling you something. That's one of the reasons that we fight, because we are not going to stop.
You know what? On top of all of this, You know, there's a funny tweet in response to this post. This guy, Winston, says, so let me get this straight. We have accused them of running a shadow government deep state for years, and now they're just coming out in the open admitting it. Well, actually, the New York Times already ran an article that said the deep state is kind of cool. There is an article from Newsweek. John Bolton has called for the weaponization of the DOJ against Matt Gaetz and Tulsi Gabbard because they don't want them to get in to Trump's cabinet. So let's clarify this.
Prosecute.
Matt Gaetz is accused of no wrongdoing. Tulsi Gabbard is accused of no wrongdoing. And John Bolton said, send the FBI after them.
Arrest and prosecute. I mean, honestly.
That is, they have.
Why
He's a
would they
warmonger,
do
too.
that, right? You have to ask yourself, this is what the American people need to say. Why is John Bolton afraid of Tulsi Gabbard and Matt Gaetz?
That's right.
Why is the intel community afraid of these people? Why are people at HHS afraid of RFK?
Right.
Who's afraid of Bobby Kennedy? Really? What's
know.
going on here? So people just need to kick in their critical thinking and be like, hey, what's going on here? And if this was reversed, what would be happening today? Because I can assure
we
you.
know there would be doors being kicked in. They put Roger
Exactly.
Stone in jail. There was a guy that they put Steve Bannon in jail.
You guys would be in jail.
There was a guy that was.
Tina Peters. Look at her, this poor woman.
Yeah, I mean,
get her out of there.
There have been people killed in raids. I
Yes.
forget the guy's name, but I think he was
J6ers.
Yeah, I mean, so the Donald Trump needs to be the president the left is afraid of. He needs to be the president that the left has been saying, oh no, Donald Trump is going to do this. All lawfully, all within the law, but he needs to exercise the power of the executive.
But it doesn't matter. There's no off-ramp. When the Democrats weaponized the DOJ to go after Donald Trump, and now you have John Bolton, who's not a Democrat, but he's a uniparty establishment, he's a neocon guy, calling explicitly for the weaponization of the DOJ because they're panicked. Trump says, we're going to go after the corruption, and the immediate response is, oh no, Trump is weaponizing the government against us. There's no reality where either Trump and the Republicans just bow down and say, we're going to do nothing, and the Democrats continue their lawfare and seek to destroy this country, or Trump says, we're putting a stop to it. They stand up and scream, he's a fascist.
Yes.
So either we defend this country and the Democrats go insane, or we do nothing and the Democrats go insane. Either way, the left is seeking to burn everything down.
Yeah. We got to weed out the poison, as they say. We've got to dilute the poison, and it is poisonous. They're very poisonous. They're very...
You know, I was watching this morning the opening statement on the Lake and Riley trial.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just so grateful this trial was happening. It's on the morning news, and they were playing it in full. And I'm like, this is the importance of what our founding fathers understood in having trials.
That's right.
It's why we had Nuremberg.
That's right.
So that you can publicize and show everybody and have that person sit there as the evidence is presented against them to prove what they've been doing.
That's right.
The best possible outcome is going to be when Trump calmly and reasonably sends the DOJ, the FBI, or otherwise, that's been reformed, to arrest people, perp walk, sit them down and say, here's everything they did and why they did it. Right. And then a jury of their peers will have to go, yeah, they did that. Oh, yeah. Guilty. And then they can go to jail for crimes they committed.
That's right.
When we can prove crimes were committed.
That's right.
It was funny because I said this several months ago, and they tried to turn it into... They lie about everything. They say that Tim is calling for extrajudicial actions.
Yes, exactly.
No. We want everything under the law, calm, reasonable, nonviolent, just a guy in a jacket arresting a guy and saying you broke the law.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because they did. I mean, there are laws they broke.
Yes.
Joe Biden in his documents. How about that one?
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
incredible.
also people to tell the truth.
That's right.
And that's why, see, you all, what you're doing here today is dangerous, right? That's why they're afraid of people like James O'Keefe, Charlie Kirk, everything else. They're starting to talk about it a little bit more on the news. Like, oh my goodness, they're getting the word out there. They're mobilizing their people. No, they're just simply telling the truth. But see, if people cannot hear the truth, they can't take actions to protect themselves, their families, or go vote. Yeah. So, this is alarming. That's alarming. I hadn't seen that clip.
Yeah, that's it is. And they're not gonna stop.
No.
It's like a scared cat in the corner. They're cornered right now, but they're dangerous. That's a dangerous animal. So it is very, we all have to stay on our toes and be aware of what's going to happen.
Right. And listen to
but we have
voices.
great people like yourselves and
Yeah.
and Mike talks about digital soldiers and people, critical thinking. We got to get that, back with kids and go find the research. If you have a question about somebody, you tell something, Tim, and your audience that you give factual, go find out yourself and go research that information and get both sides, get the whole picture. Critical thinking, it's really important.
I want to ask you about Europe and the international component of this.
Yeah.
I went to, this is about 6 years ago, I went to France. And I went and met with a bunch of the refugees, quote unquote. They're economic migrants, but they call them refugees. And I saw this, and I went to Athens. And in both circumstances, the people who were there said they were tricked, they were lied to, and they wish they never came. So I've got a video from France where they said, just don't film our faces. So I point the camera down at their feet. I'm in front of this refugee camp, and I said, are you happy here? And they said, no, they lied to us.
Yeah.
They told us all these things. They tricked us. We came on this difficult journey, and now we're suffering. It's cold. We have nothing. Why did they lie to us? I went to Athens. They said the exact same thing. We were told by these NGO groups, they were jobs for us, that the programs were open, the government was letting people in to live a better life. We come here, they tell us that's not true, and now all we can do is sell drugs in the street.
Yeah.
Why are we here?
Yeah.
And so what is it that we're seeing this weird mass migration component in Europe and the United States? Clearly, I mean, when you see that the U.S. has a similar program going on, open the border, let them come in, and then in Europe, you see this. The first thing I'll say is the only reason they weren't happening at the same time is because Trump won the presidency.
Right.
But now, as soon as the Biden gets in with Harris, the border's wide open.
Goes back, yeah. And they start to do the New World Order agenda, which is a World Economic Forum. That's another word for the New World Order. It's the World Economic. That's the same entity, and that's what their whole thing is, to move like digital currency. In China, everybody, you get shut down, you can't use your cards and all that, digital. So it's all a move to be this globalist, and even the Vatican talks about one world religion, so it's all this big move to global, and they have to take America into that. That's their biggest thing, is to take us into the rest of the world and make everything, so they can control everybody.
Yeah,
it's basically,
and it causes financial collapse,
Exactly,
right? Because
exactly.
look, butter is $7. Why is that?
Yeah.
Butter is $7 because we brought Venezuelans, and I love Venezuelans, right? But we have Tren de Aragua. They are terrorizing people. We brought them here.
Yeah.
And your tax dollars are funding their living, they're getting housing, they're getting all of these benefits that the taxpayer who's working is paying for. Right. So, I mean, I'm a fairly simple person. The basic point of having a government is to protect your citizens.
That's right.
I mean, that's at the basic level. If you're not doing that, you get an F. You are failing, right? You have to protect your citizens. And so what they have done is made, like you said, lured people here.
Yeah.
With you're going to have housing, you're going to have food, you're going to have all these benefits. It's going to be great. And people didn't realize what they were getting into. Well, the kids were telling us even.
Right. That's right.
The kids were like, oh my goodness, I was making $2. This was one of the cases in Austin. Real case. I mean, real kids telling us this. Well, I was making $2.50 a day on the coffee farm back in Guatemala. But my sponsor here, who was in Austin, Texas, he told me he's going to pay me $6 an hour if I come here to the United States. This child believes he's going to be Elon Musk rich, but he doesn't realize he's coming to be a slave. Yeah. They don't realize that. They can never get out of their debt bondage. The carnage, the death of people who've come on this journey, the rape of the women and children and men, boys and girls, it's horrific what's happened. I mean, people just don't realize. And so then you have people who are not able to work. They're getting all the handouts. And then what happens when that goes away? What's about to happen in New York right now when Mayor Adams says, we're not going to give you the money for food anymore?
He should shut those hotels down.
He's under
hotels down right now.
investigation, right?
But what's going to happen when they put
They indicted
right?
him, yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of people out
That's right.
on the streets. I'm just saying, what do they think is going to happen? But New York can't afford it.
No.
No city can afford it. And people are starting to wake up to the fact that, hey, wait a minute.
And the other thing is, you got to remember, to get this country to comply with the globalists, they have to dilute the American exceptionalist, the real American, by pouring in all these people, because they're not going to assimilate to our country, but that's the purpose, to get rid of the now we're like the minority, we're like the minority. The Americans are like the minority. So it's like flushing, pouring in to dilute us. And then they've destroyed the country. Then we're becoming more like Europe and all these other countries that have all this refugee, all this stuff going on. So it's a diluting of American people.
Yes, and I want to say something interesting too, because I don't know one Latino. Remember, my husband's from El Salvador. I don't know one who voted Democrat, not one. And people are trying to call my Latino friends racist, and many of the people who left their countries during war, like El Salvador, they left Venezuela a long time ago. They've come here. They came from Cuba. They consider themselves Americans. They love this country. Yeah. They've worked hard for this country, to have the American dream. And they are not very happy with the government that is trying to, take all of their rights away, make them, when they're working so hard for their families, take all of their tax dollars and give it to other people. It wouldn't matter where on the globe these people are coming from. So the fact that people are trying to say that folks who don't want immigration, like Latinos, I don't know if you've been hearing that, they're calling Latinos racist.
Oh, yeah.
Against themselves.
Yeah.
Latinos are white supremacists. And I'm like, honey, did you know you were white supremacist?
With the way they've
But we
diluted.
can't let them play this game. And that's why what you're doing here on this podcast and what other people are doing are exposing the truth, as opposed to the constant lies that are coming from this legacy media that's nothing but the propaganda machine.
That's
and
exactly
anyway,
right.
I just wanted to throw that out there, because they are trying to fundamentally change America, but so many people came here for the American dream, and they're mad because they can't have it. And it doesn't matter what your country of origin was.
Exactly.
10 years ago, people considered themselves Americans, and now they're trying to create these wars. Yeah. But I found out my husband, who's from El Salvador, is a racist.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Larry
He
Elder
thinks it's
is
funny.
The black face of white supremacy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And let's talk about white people. So I come from Ireland. My ancestors are Irish. They were poor in New England. They came over. I mean, we were slaves. You got to understand. My grandparents, they were bought and paid for servitude. They didn't call them like what they called the black slaves, but they called them servitude because they're white. So it was easy for them to have like the white Irish they're living in their homes. So they would look like they were, they could rape them, they could buy their children, they could do whatever they wanted because they were white. You understand what I'm saying? Like and they were the first slave servitude to be put into this country, because in England they tortured the Irish. They tortured. That was the problem between the Protestant, the North and the South, the Protestant, the Catholic. This is a faith, a religion war, and the whites are people. I mean, in Italy, because your skin is white doesn't mean that you're not being persecuted or you weren't being sold and bought, as a slave in this country, brought over here to this country. And all my relatives, all my ancestors they were working for the millionaires, the blue blood, the English, the Vanderbilts, all the Drexels, all these big blue blood families, the Roosevelts, the Rothschilds, all of them. They lived in Newport. They were millionaires in those days, in the Gilded Age. And the Irish were their slaves, and they took advantage of all the women. They bought and sold the babies. They brought them over. I mean, the same stories go about the whites' skin. I'm talking about skin now. So because it was easy for them to get away with, because they were white. Do you understand? So it was easy for them to get away with torturing the Irish. And that's what happened in New England. In my hometown, the Irish were slaves. My grandmother worked for the millionaires. They tortured my grandmother. They treated them horrible. They were horrible. They took advantage of them all the time. They raped them. They took their babies. They had multiple children too. Multiple. And it was easy because they didn't have to tell, because their skin color was white, the same as them. So it's a historical thing when we talk about that. Every American back in the day when this country was founded came from a different culture, a different area of the world. That's why we came here, because we wanted to run from tyranny. Freedom was what we wanted, to worship what we wanted to do and not be under tyranny. And so we all have this kind of, great Americanism, American, stories about our cultures. But, we got to get rid of this skin color and this kind of nonsense, because they're going after white people now. That's what they said about this win with Trump, that it was the white people.
Yeah.
It was the white people. Like, come on, stop. This is nonsense.
There was
do that.
guy I think it was on CNN, and he said,
Yeah, I mean,
this was because white people are scared of not white people. And
I
I'm
know,
like,
it's crazy stuff they say. I mean, I grew up with all my friends. I had Latino friends, I had black friends, I used to sit around with them and laugh about. They'd made fun of me because, in my family it was like, if you didn't get to dinner, you weren't eating. Like, they make fun of. I mean, it was just fun to grow up the way we grow up, and we got to bring that back. And to be honest with you, this, Tim, because you're my children's age, my kids' age. There was no color. There was no problem with any kind of racism. I never saw any of that. I saw prejudice. Prejudice is a word that people need to go look up, because adults will do that. They'll be. You can even be prejudiced against a food. Being prejudiced, look that word up as far as being racist,
In Chicago, we had crazy racial segregation.
Yes,
Chicago's like
exactly.
But it was done throughout the, up until the 80s intentionally by real estate markets.
That's exactly right.
They made it illegal, but those issues still exist. So where I grew up, since the 90s,
yeah,
sure, it's called blockbusting, it's called redlining.
Yeah.
Illegal. Didn't matter. Once you crossed 47th Street to the north, every single person there was black. No white people lived there.
Right.
And if a white person walked over there, the cops would pull over and say, get in the car and drive him back and say, you have no business being over there.
That's right.
And so to this day, Chicago is massively racially segregated.
Oh, it's awful, I know.
But this is not what happens then is, the issue is there's an otherization.
Yes.
Where you have gangs from one side, and they're all black. And they'll come over to the mixed, it's largely white, but it is fairly mixed. It's Latino.
Yeah.
And then you'll get conflict that people who live over there will say, oh, it's the black people who are coming and doing. And I'm like, well, it's because they're a separate community.
That's right.
The black people who live next to you have no problem with you. You're not fighting with them. There's nothing to do with race. It's that they've created an isolated community.
That's right.
Told everybody it's about race, and then created this.
It's polarized. They polarize. Right. They've divided. They've desensitized people to this stuff too, by continually saying these certain words that we're talking about. To make people think it's just accepted. It's like adult, child attractiveness.
Maps.
Yeah.
I mean, that's they're making it seem like it's normal. It's not normal. It's not normal to hurt a child. Sorry.
That's the crazy thing too, is that everything that we see them doing has this component of, these books they're putting in schools.
I know.
It is fascinating
Pornography.
and terrifying when you have mainstream liberals like, I'll give a shout out to Emma Vigeland of the Majority Report, who is in favor of, she personally wants porn to be given to kids. And it's, why? And she says, I don't oppose censorship. And I'm like, that's a really weird position.
That's not why either.
No, it's not why
not.
either.
Of course
no.
not.
Well, they got mad when I said, then you're a pedophile.
Yes, right.
And then everybody lost their mind and say, how dare you call her that?
Oh.
What do you mean? She said she wanted to give images of adult activities to kids.
Yeah.
Like, what am I supposed to call her?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we were talking at dinner last night. So there is a rash across the country of teachers raping their students.
Yeah.
And I saw somebody post, they had like 20 pictures, and it was women. Like in their early 20s who are sexually abusing middle schoolers and other children who they work with. Why is this happening?
Yeah.
Well,
why is it happening? Because
there's an increase.
adults are having inappropriate conversations
Right.
with children. This is ridiculous.
Right. Right.
There was that
The grooming is.
They are.
Right. There's a teacher in Illinois. The parents called the police on her because she gave a book to her 10-year-old students that had things in it, for example, explaining what scat was. And so when the parents found out, they called the cops. They were like, this is illegal.
Right. It is.
And Democrats are actively defending it. It's just, why?
And they disregard the laws on the books about this
Right.
stuff. This is pornography, period.
Well, this is what really irks me because we're in West Virginia, and it's explicitly illegal in West Virginia to have child drag shows.
Right.
The issue is the law. No, laws aren't passed saying things like a child drag show is illegal. That's not a law. The law says public displays of adult activities or lewd or lascivious activities or obscene activities are a crime that is an aggravated offense if it involves children.
Right.
What they're doing now is just saying there's nothing lewd about a man putting on gigantic fake breasts and there was one instance where I think it was in Florida where it was a drag show with full nudity.
Yeah, I know.
And they had fake, big fake breasts
Yeah,
and
it was
kids
in
are there.
Venice. They did it in Venice.
And so in West Virginia, and I'll take credit for this because I haven't paid attention on the ground, but they had a pride event where they had a drag show next to my building that I own, and they had kids on stage. And so I was pissed, came on the show, complained about it. I ended up hearing after the fact a few months ago, people are complaining on social media saying because of me, they shut down those events. Oh. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't talk to anybody.
Right.
I just complained about it and said, I complained on the show indirectly to the AG, who's not going to be the governor. And I said, you're the attorney general. Why aren't we seeing arrests? It is illegal under West Virginia law to have public displays of lewd and lascivious behavior, and it's aggravated if involving children, and they're doing child drag shows in public. And he said, I don't handle that thing. It's the prosecutors who are supposed to go after that. I'm the AG. I'm the state's lawyer. I'm not the state's, I don't do these things.
Yeah.
I think it was that when I said that on the show that caused a ripple in West Virginia, I guess, because now
good. That's good.
these woke activists on West Virginia are like, it's Tim Pool's fault. We can't do this.
Oh, good
The
for
funny
you.
thing about it is, apparently at the skate park in Maryland, not too far from here, a bunch of people talking smack about me for no reason because people are weirdos. And then one person brought up, because of Tim Pool, we can't do these drag shows with kids anymore. And all the other guys were like, well, we don't like Tim Pool, but we're actually glad he did that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Regular
imagine.
people do
There
not
you
like
go.
this stuff.
Oh, listen, we did a grooming bill down in Florida, and guess who stood up for us? The LGBTQ. There are people in that community that actually do not want grooming of children. Okay, they stood up against it and they helped get that grooming bill passed. And that grooming bill is going across this country. And they actually stood up. I mean, there are people that do realize that little eyes and little minds don't need to see this little stuff. This horrible stuff. These little people don't need it.
Have you seen the
Terrible.
the viral clips from the I Am Jazz show?
Yeah, I saw.
So
Somebody showed me
you're
the
familiar
other
with
day.
Jazz Jennings?
Yeah.
So Jazz, it was, I think, 7 when they said Jazz was trans.
Yeah.
And at
now I know who
11,
you're talking about.
puberty blockers. There was a viral clip where Jazz's mother says that Jazz didn't want to use a dilator, which is a medical instrument for expanding a surgical crevice in the pelvis for the purpose of sex.
Yep.
And Jazz's mother said, I wake Jazz up in the middle of the night and I say, you stick this in, or if you don't, I'm going to lube it up and stick it in myself, or something like that. And I was like, that person should be in prison.
Oh, she's mentally.
And that's in Florida.
That's incredible.
That's in Florida.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
so when I said,
Yeah.
where's Ron DeSantis?
Yeah.
The DeSantis people lost their mind.
Yeah.
And they said, this has nothing to do with us. And I'm like, Jazz is an adult in your state.
Oh, yeah.
If a man went on TV and said that about his wife, the sheriff would show up at his house and be like, sir,
right.
we're investigating domestic abuse.
That's right. That's
But
right.
even in Florida, they allow this stuff.
Yes.
One of the first things Trump's got to do,
Yeah.
okay, first of all,
Yeah.
he's got to pardon the J6ers.
Yes.
I think anybody who was violent,
Yep.
commute, because if you were
Yes.
violent, you were attacking cops, you get charged for that. But if you were wandering around confused, get out of here, pardon.
Yeah.
Following this, there's got to be, and this is Congress has got to do this, banning all of this child abuse.
Yeah,
Yes.
it does.
It is child abuse.
It does. It's all child abuse. That's right, Tara. It is. It's got to stop. You got to understand. We've got to start thinking, about little ones as precious. They are. I mean, we've got to start making them try to push them into adulthood so fast. Look at, years ago, look at Hollywood. That little girls wanted to dress like some of these, women, the models and all that kind of stuff. And, this kind of get the makeup and making them look like they're older. We've got to start making children, very, very important in our society, that they need to be protected, and it's like me growing up. Like when we grow up, some of my brothers and sisters, they didn't want to, go to church. My mother would say, well, you're going to be an adult someday. You can make those decisions when you become an adult. Like, we have to start understanding that children need to be respected. That we have to respect life. That's my point, and we don't.
And it seems like there's just a war on children.
There is.
What is this about? I mean, this is a new thing. It seems to me, there's this war on children, and this makes no sense.
Yeah.
And any adult who wants to be having sexual conversations with 5-year-olds needs their head examined. Seriously.
So you were talking earlier about it's essentially it's communism.
Yes.
And there's a point that I make regularly. Happy, well-adjusted people do not engage in revolutionary activities.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if you can do things that will mess up a child's life, that will stunt their development, that will scar them emotionally, they are more likely to be unhappy when they reach teen and early 20s, teenagers in early 20s, and that's when people are most likely to engage in revolutionary activities.
Yeah.
That's when you get your
communist.
It's when you get your foot soldiers, the people that'll go to the protests and throw rocks and
the
throw
radicals
firebombs.
the radical Islam does it too. I mean, that's what they do. That's what these cultures do. They start them really, really young.
They
groom them really young. I mean, that's what happened in St. Gallen, Switzerland, with the seminary over there. This worst pedophile of all times is Cardinal McCarrick. He was groomed over in St. Gallen, which is Switzerland, which is the St. Gallen Mafia, and they took this seminary, and that's what they did. They started to groom these young boys to be priests, but they groomed them and they raped them, and they started them very young, and then they grew up to be priests and pedophiles, and they sent them into this country. So this is what happened in this country with the Catholic Church. They sent these really sick people over to this country. That's what that was the infiltration of communism at that time. And what happens is this is the Catholic Church scandal of all times is this pedophile scandal, and they did nothing to heal the church. We have to heal these victims, these survivors. This is extremely important. It's one of the reasons that I did this project, Defend and Protect Our Children. I kept thinking to myself, what kind of society are we going to have if we've got four generations of pedophiles, you guys? And from what I hear from some of my intel and my people, it's almost 5 now. Like, that's a lot of. That goes back to the Nazis. It goes back to the communism. It's just what they did to demoralize, to infect our society with perversion. So my problem is, what are we going to do? Are we growing criminals? Our society is just going to be criminals? Look at public school system. Those kids can't get homeschooled. They're the ones that are being indoctrinated right now. All this critical this CRT and all this, all this grooming. These teachers, these public school teachers, they're being told what to do.
Yep.
They're not teaching math, science, and the way public school was supposed to be kind of a program for kids that couldn't afford big schools, and so forth. I mean, they're just not getting a homeschool. They're going
initially public schools were teaching kids not just the subject they were teaching, but they were also teaching them how to engage in a type of work, right?
Yeah.
They were teaching them how to be factory workers, how to,
trades
and stuff like that.
Right?
And as that became less important through automation and stuff, they took that kind of stuff away, and they've replaced it with things like CRT, because nowadays, again, this is something that Herbert Marcuse, who's a Marxist theorist from the 50s and 60s, he wrote that the revolutionary energy was no longer with the working people because capitalism delivered the goods. Capitalism actually made society better. Marx predicted that capitalism would make society worse. He was wrong. And so all the Marxists had to essentially rethink their theories. And so Marcuse said, capitalism delivers the goods. We're not going to find the revolutionary energy, which again, you have to be unhappy and dissatisfied with your life to be a revolutionary. Marcuse said, you're going to find the revolutionary energy in the ghettos and with the colored population.
Oppress.
With the POC. And so everything went from being the working class, which is historically what the left focused on, to the oppressed minorities. And that's why you see CRT, why you see so much focus on identity and stuff like that, why you have all of this, the oppression narratives, because if you can convince people that they're oppressed, then you can basically engage in agitation propaganda.
Their self-esteem, their crush.
And then they feel like they have been oppressed. They will start to believe it because as soon as bad things happen to everybody, but if you can convince people that the bad things that have happened to them are because someone else caused them, then you can get them to engage in revolutionary activities. It's all about tearing down the system that we have to install essentially what boils down to a communist utopia, which, I mean, you can't ever have a utopia, but that's the argument they make.
Control people.
Exactly.
Control people. I mean, Margaret Sanger was the one who was, Planned Parenthood. That's the abortion. She wanted to eliminate black. She said it. She was the biggest racist there ever. You talk about a white woman who was a racist. She wanted to her thing was abortion, eliminate the black. She said it.
And I can't remember if you look at Planned Parenthood locations, they're almost always just on the outskirts of black and Latino neighborhoods.
Absolutely. And by the way, we need to let some of those people out of jail too. They've been arresting, women. I was one woman who's got 5 children. She's an amazing woman, and they arrested her because she was praying outside the Planned Parenthood.
That's crazy.
There's a man who's 7
insane.
children. They arrested him. Same thing. He was doing was praying.
Those people, as soon as Donald Trump gets into office, he needs to
these people
figure out some way to get them out of prison.
They don't belong in prison, and we need to reevaluate that part as too. Is somebody like Kamala Harris putting people in jail like these prosecutors? You talked about prosecutors too, Tim. One of the problems that we have in this child trafficking thing is that the DAs are the problem, the prosecutors, because they make deals with these pedophiles. So, a guy comes in and he's, hurt a child and so forth. They're making deals with these guys. And there's no deal with these guys. That's a very bad thing that these prosecutors and DAs.
So what happens in the next couple of months? Opposition from the establishment?
Clearly.
Yeah,
that's going to ramp up. I think we're going to see some interesting things. I think we'll probably know more when he makes a few more of his picks, his cabinet picks. And we'll see how wild the legacy media goes off in their hypocrisy. Because seriously, Tim, I had not seen that, and that's appalling because they're doing exactly what they're claiming that the other side is going to do, and yet they're openly defying the will of the people, and that's concerning. People should be concerning. Or people should be concerned. So they should be. Voters should be watching the news, and they should be getting educated on what's really happening. So I think it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
So there's 11 of 24 positions that Trump has announced. There's 13 remaining individuals for him to announce.
Yep.
Doug Collins, Burgum, RFK, Elise Stefanik, Zeldin.
Yep.
This is pretty amazing. It's pretty good bunch.
Yeah.
I hadn't even heard about Zeldin. That was
he's
very,
a good guy. He
very
worked for
under
my
the
brother.
radar.
He's a good guy. He worked for my brother.
Look at that, Burgum for the interior.
Yeah. Yep.
This is going to get interesting.
Yeah, Burgum's smart. Real smart guy.
And then you've got this is his direct administration, right? So you got Scavino, Miller, Budowich, James Blair, Susie Wiles.
Yeah.
Homan, border czar. See, this is funny because border czar is not a position.
I know.
It's going to be a consult look at this. They didn't put Doge. They wouldn't do it. They put government efficiency.
Yeah, government efficiency.
No confirmation required because these are more consultant positions.
That's right.
Yeah, and so they're trying to besmirch all of this, but I think Trump can get a lot done with these consultant positions
Yes.
like borders are in Doge and stuff.
I do too.
Yes, I do too. I do too. And I will say that there has been talk. You probably heard a lot of people on the campaign trail talk about the 320,000 missing children.
Right.
And of course, that is, one of the main reasons we agreed to come here and talk to you is about these kids, because I think the average person just doesn't know that this is happening. So Tuesday's hearing, I think, will be enlightening. But some of the people that you just put up on that board, like Tom Homan, Tulsi Gabbard, right? They could launch the largest child recovery operation that's ever been attempted on the globe.
Yes.
So
there is a plan, you guys.
Yeah, there's a
There is
plan.
a really good one too.
Yeah, there are plans. And so when you asked, what might we see? That's what I'd really like to see. I'd like to see the largest child recovery operation in the history of the globe. And it can be done.
And along with that, it takes down NGOs, bad NGOs, and it takes down criminals. It takes down the Johns and the buyers and sellers. It's a massive plan, and it's been in the works. And one of the things that we are going to try to do is get the information to them, to the right people, so they understand that there are people. The other thing too, Tara, she also, we discussed this way back, is there is a whistleblowers, for example, this whistleblower kind of concept. There is a right way to do that and a wrong way to do that, meaning there's a way to do it with protection and then a way to do it without protection, the wrong way, which is why some people have gotten their jobs and ruined their Aaron's one of them. And so
FBI
that's one thing. Yeah, that's one thing Tara understands, and she's given. She's helped kind of lead people into the right way, because we do need people to get fearless and to come forward that are working inside, that they want to do the right thing now. This is the time to do it. And so that's one of the things that I think that Tara has been so amazing.
Well, I do appreciate Mary saying that, because the government has been weaponized against people who want to come forward and tell the truth. I mean, if you had a business and you found somebody was stealing from your business, you would want to know that. But sadly, FBI whistleblowers, Aaron Stevenson, other whistleblowers, me, I come forward, and then the next thing our badges are being taken.
Wow.
So we need... people do need to follow the right way.
That's right.
James O'Keefe, I know you guys know James really
he's
well, and, sometimes people say, well, I went to James and I wasn't able to get it. I still lost my job. The challenge is that being a whistleblower is a delicate thing. There are only 3 protected pathways. You have to go through the office. Yeah, you have to go through the Office of Inspector General. You have to go through Office of Special Counsel, or you go through Congress. I mean, you can go to Congress. These are the only ways that you can be 100% sure that you are protected. However, if they find out you've done those things, then they can still retaliate against you. And that's what I'm hoping with Doge, government efficiency, along with the Office of the Inspectors General, that they can stop the whistleblowers from being retaliated against. This is a serious thing. Whistleblowers come forward with critical information, like children being raped.
They have rights.
Yeah, and so we need to figure out a way to truly protect them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important, because we need those people to come forward. They're witnesses, and they've been intimidated, whatever it is. I mean, I couldn't live with myself if I saw something. That's what happened to me in my business career, because it's over 40 years I've been in the business world, and every single time with money, when I would find something nefarious, I don't know how you sleep at night. I just couldn't live with myself knowing it, and it's what happened with me in the Catholic Church. I found the money. I was sick to my stomach. I explained this whole thing to Tara last night, how it works, and I hope these people understand that they got to come forward, and they got to do the right thing, or get out and go away, or whatever. I don't know, but it's just, it's time for truth. This is a time of reveal too. I'm going to say this too, as a very faithful kind of Christian, I want you to understand that the Lord's been accelerating this reveal. He's helping us see things, and so we just have to understand that there's a reason for everything. Nothing's a coincidence. It's just that this is a time of reveal. There'll be more revealing coming. All this music industry, all these other things, they're going to go after Epstein stuff. There's people that are very, very scared of what's coming their way, especially if you've hurt a child, if you've been, or you know somebody that you've hurt that hurts a child. My brother talked about that, like as an officer. Some of the summits, he would say, 10 years ago, a leader, a politician would go out of the government and would go travel outside the country, and they would be compromised. They'd be put in a position where they were, pictures, sleeping, whatever, drunk, whatever, and they could have sex with a child or rape a child. But 10 years ago, about that, maybe a little longer now, you could actually do it in this country. But they were compromised going outside the country. They're doing it in this country. So there are look at this massive arrest from Boston to Washington. I just read a report on that one. The ones in Washington, it was a massive network of pedophiles, business people, politicians, judges, all kinds of stuff. That was investigated. They just said that Boston people are indicting, but Washington, D.C. area, Virginia area are not indicting. So that's got to change. That's a kind of a case that they need to look at, because we've got to arrest people.
Nobody's arrested. Why?
I think
that?
if the first thing Republicans do, and I say first thing, but if one of the first things they do is citizenship requirement, you need proof of citizenship to vote.
Yeah.
And that creates some sort of voter ID.
Election integrity.
Then Democrats can't win elections anymore.
Yeah, that's right. I agree.
They rely on, it's a combination of, I'm not going to say outright fraud, probably, maybe, but it's dramatic ease of access to people who are uninterested in voting.
Yeah.
If we had 10 people in a room and you said, who wants to vote on what's for dinner? And half of them said, we don't care. Mm-hmm. Well, then only the people who care are going to vote, and you're going to get probably something good.
Yep.
But what Democrats do is they go to people who say, I don't want to vote, and say, just vote for what we want.
Yeah.
Just give it to me. And they go, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
Bye. You get rid of those low propensity voters, and this country goes Republican overnight.
Yeah.
Much like what we've seen in this past week.
This election.
Yeah, and I would say it's not even just Republican, Democrat, right? This is about, do you believe in the American dream or not?
Yeah.
Do you want to govern everybody, into obeying all of your rules, or do you just want people to have freedom? That's kind of really what's on the ballot. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the people that we just saw on the board that you put up there, Tim, those nominations, they're across all parties, right? And this is a different coalition that we're seeing now. This is about people who care about the foundation of the country and the well-being of the people who live here. And that seems to kind of make sense. If you're a government, you want to care about the people who live there and their well-being. But, Well,
and the litmus test is a child. Is so everybody, both sides, should want to protect the child. So the litmus test to me is these Democrats have not done any of that. They've not wanted to protect children. Look at the border, for example. Look at these agencies. Look at, that's a litmus test for me. And I called out a lot of politicians down in Florida, and I got one politician. I said to him one time, I said, "What are you going to do about the child trafficking?" And he said, "Oh, that's not even top 10 on my list."
Wow, unreal.
So that's a litmus test for me. That means a lot to me, because if you don't care about what's going on, I mean, everybody should care about what's going on here.
Absolutely.
That's a Republican that said that, by the way. That's a Republican that said that to me. So,
wow.
I mean, you can see that, so if they don't want to, protect children, there's something wrong with them. There's just something wrong.
Well, I mean, it seems like they just assume that it seems like they assume that if they try to get these people, that it'll come to nothing.
I know.
I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. Unless if they're not actively involved, right? Then there must be some kind of disincentive from going after the people that are carrying out these kind of crimes.
Well, let's hope that Elon and Vivek, remember the Vivek. I met him. He's a great guy. But Vivek, he likes. Remember the pictures of the interns or the people in the Congress with the guy. They were having sex in the Congress. Do you remember those?
Oh,
pictures?
those two guys.
yeah.
Remember those two guys? Let's hope that these guys start cleaning that culture out.
Those guys should
It's
go
a
to jail.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Sin City over.
It's remarkable that they didn't go to jail.
Isn't that?
Jeez.
I mean, it's
Two men
violation.
filming
Yeah.
a sex act, two gay men
Yep.
in the Senate building.
I know, and like nobody talks about that. Like, what? That was
The video went viral. It was disgusting.
It was disgusting. And let's hope that gets cleaned out, because that's where they need to start, is cleaning that house up, that culture of, just bleh,
Yeah,
you know?
somehow
I mean, that
people-
shouldn't even be in part of
Yeah,
their work.
somehow once people get into the swamp, they turn into swamp monsters.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is. Like,
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it true that power does corrupt?
Yeah, there's a weakness.
And so there are weaknesses, and
Vulnerability.
just in total transparency. I was an intern for Senator Chuck Robb of Virginia, a Democrat. He was like normal, right? Normal. But when I was working as an intern for him, he had to fire his chief of staff, Bobby Watson, who was running out of the Richmond office, because he was whoring around with the interns. So I had been to his house, met his family, and then I'm finding out, well, he's getting fired because of this. So it's not like it's new,
Right.
but it has gone to a new level.
Yeah.
And people on Capitol Hill are supposed to be governing. They're not supposed to be having sex in
that's right.
in the building.
Yeah.
So just a thought. I don't know. Maybe we'll see some interesting change along that lines too.
Yeah. Well, I don't think Vivek and Elon will, put up with that kind of stuff. I mean,
That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
It is.
the sergeant at arms in that that takes care of the Congress, the actual chambers. Those people need to be talked to. Like, allowing that stuff to happen. Who's got access to what?
I think we need to take a look at
some of the
within the
clearances.
DOJ.
Yeah.
It's not just the weaponization, but dereliction of duty.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a question of, hey, these two guys were in the Senate building doing this disgusting thing on video. The video was published. The evidence is there.
Right.
Everybody knows they did it. And all that happened was got fired. I want to see the internal communications from the DOJ being like, we're not going anywhere near this. And why?
Yep.
Yep.
And then at a certain point,
I do too.
Well, I mean, FOIA requests. We can.
I want to see. Yeah.
I assume we could make a FOIA request.
Look at Tom Fenton.
well, I'm assuming that as soon as Trump gets in, it's not going to be that difficult. I mean, especially with RFK Jr. at HHS,
Yes.
there's going to be a lot of internal communications. I imagine they're going to publish a lot of this stuff.
know.
Just like, here you go.
I know, and they're all for letting the American people know, because I'll tell you what I'd like to do. I'd like to see some of these people that are so blinded from the media and from what they've been told, the lies they've been told, to wake up. I'd like to see some people start waking up, and hopefully they'll, just with the economy and their own, pocket, they're going to have more money. So that's like, why don't they see that? Hopefully they'll see that.
Yeah,
No.
transparency.
He's talking about taking federal taxes away. That's like,
I know that
No
would
income
be
tax.
crazy.
And
Yeah.
then I have people saying, like, yeah, but the tariffs are going to make everything expensive. And I'm like,
Oh, not
if your imported products are more expensive, but you don't pay taxes,
yeah,
aren't you better off?
yeah, no,
That means that your American-made goods will be cheaper.
that's right. Yeah.
Your computer will be more expensive, but guess what? If you kept 100% of your paycheck, you probably wouldn't notice that much.
That's right. And maybe we can change that. Maybe we can change that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
Make it American. That's
Oh, definitely.
I
mean, we rely, especially with Saudi Arabia getting off the petrodollar, we're in trouble.
That's right.
So,
I know.
I don't
Lot of
know.
work to do.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
Well,
to
the
do.
United States needs to get back its manufacturing base.
They do.
Yes.
Otherwise, we also need to mass produce our own energy.
We do.
Yes,
Trump
absolutely.
is saying that.
That's right. Oh yeah, that'll come back. There's no question. I mean, that's what I even when he left. I mean, I just can't understand how people didn't understand that we were so energy. Like, it was a beautiful thing. It was my husband has a diesel truck. Diesel is crazy expensive when women try to
God,
get in.
yeah.
It was
now DEF.
crazy.
Now they make you buy DEF too.
Yes.
All new trucks have to have diesel exhaust fluid, which is
Yes.
horse piss.
Yes.
Not exaggeration. It's literal.
No.
It's literal horse
I
piss.
know.
Yep.
That's what my husband
And you
said.
got to mix it into a separate tank.
Yep.
That just increased the cost for all diesel transport substantially.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and a lot of people started messing with the sensors because your truck will stop.
Oh yeah.
So we got a Ram.
Yeah, that's what
And-
my husband has.
When you drive it, if your DEF is low, it says speed will be reduced to 15 miles an hour until you refill your DEF.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a
there's
green-
no
it's a climate
control
change thing.
there.
It's a climate
yes,
change, yeah. It's all
exactly.
climate.
Get you on energy, not allow you to have your gas stove and every other thing.
EPA is going to be a really interesting
crazy
thing
train.
too, because
That's Zeldin.
yeah, no, and he's really smart. But I mean, the EPA. I had two professors when I was studying that environmental science degree, that bachelor degree, and I had two professors that left the EPA. They were very, very disgruntled. They talked to me about all the corruption, and boy, did they. The corruption in the EPA is huge. And those judges are very powerful. Judges that sit on those EPA benches, those environmental judges, they're very powerful.
So we got just a couple minutes left, but would you like to give your final thoughts and then maybe shout anything out?
Well, I want to thank you for having us. I really enjoyed being here and having this discussion. Tara and I love to come together. We've become really good friends over the years now. And I just want to say that, people just need to stay steady, say your prayers, try to find a relationship with Christ. I mean that. I'm not kidding you. I've been through trauma in my life, and I've been through lots of suffering in my life, and I'll tell you, my faith has saved us, my family. And I just want people to understand that this reality is incredible, that children are most important. When I was telling people that to get out and vote, what I was trying to say to them was, vote for the children. Do it for children. Because a lot of people were like, I'm not voting. Nothing's going to change. And I'd be like, can you just do it for the children? Just get out there and vote for the kids, because we got to save the kids. So I just want you to, hang in there. We got a lot of exciting things going on. This is a great time to be alive. It really is a great time to be alive. And, American exceptionalism is very, very powerful. You're powerful. We, the people, are powerful. And look at americasfuture.net. Look at all the work we're doing. We're having a big champion gala at Mar-a-Lago December 10th to celebrate champions that we have across this country. In every state, we have a champion. And we're gonna have, and I'd love it to have you come too, Tim. I think Melissa maybe had asked you, maybe she was going to reach out to you. But it's going to be a great celebration, bringing in the holiday seasons and celebrating. We got Kid Rock, we got Netanyahu's family coming. We got some big people coming to celebrate with us, and I'm just so excited about having this gala. So please, see if anybody wants to come. And look us up. We're going to be doing some powerful work this year coming in 2025. I'm excited.
Yeah, americasfuture.net, americasfuture.net. So the other thing I'd say, and you did have James O'Keefe to talk about Line in the Sand, and I would encourage people, lineinthesandmovie.com. He did that in conjunction with Tucker Carlson. It's a shameless plug because I was in the movie. I love it. And I think people should see what's really happening. And the very unique thing about this film is there's no actors. This is just James and his band of citizen journalists out there showing people the border crisis through the camera lens. Yeah. And it was spectacular. Yeah. Again, not a date movie, right?
Good movie.
But it's stunning to see where the money's going. So I would encourage people to see the movie so that they can understand this is real. And then anybody who would be so inclined to get in this fight, I would encourage them watch the hearing next week, so they can hear the truth of what's happening with these children. Yeah. And then as this administration begins to launch the largest child recovery operation, we want people to stand with us across the country so that we can rescue children, prosecute criminals, and disrupt trafficking infrastructure. That's what we need to do. And a lot of those people on that board are going to be able to do that.
Yeah, we're going to need churches to stand up and take care of children. We're going to need places that's going to be the problem is where are we going to bring these? Can't put them back into the foster care system because that needs reform too. So we need churches to stand up and start taking care of children in their communities. Yes. And that's really, we can do that with churches. They can do that.
And to be brave and look into the darkness. Nobody wants to look into this. Yeah. Nobody wants to hear about what's happening to a toddler or an 18-month-old. Nobody wants to know these stories. But people, hey, whatever God calls you to, he will equip you for. And people need to stand up. Yeah. They need to stand up seriously for these kids.
Do something.
So and thanks. Thank you for having us on.
Absolutely.
This is a true honor to be here to see the skate park. I mean, this is a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thanks for coming.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. You can subscribe to me on X. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. You can check out our videos on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, and Deezer. Don't forget, The Left Lane is for crime.
He's going to say that again tonight, but,
I will.
We'll be back tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. This is important conversations, and we are a couple months away from seeing what the Trump administration can pull off. So shout out, everybody. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all tonight.